precipitation in the formation of runoff. The losses such as interception, evaporation, transpiration, infiltration, these are the losses of precipitation in the formation of runoff. If you see the energy budget equation or the mass balance equation, if you see, and total precipitation is summation of runoff, interception, evaporation, transpiration, infiltration. So these are the losses which occur during the precipitation process. Already we discussed about interception. Interception is the part of precipitation which is absorbed by dry leaves and branches of vegetation before reaching the ground surface. There is no formula or there is no model involved in this interception. To estimate this interception value, only a approximate value is taken, which is 10 to 15% of total precipitation usually taken in actual practice. Next is evaporation. Evaporation, that already we discussed in the last class, that it is the escape of water molecules from the water surface as vapor or gas to the Earth's atmosphere when kinetic energy overcome the cohesive force between the water molecules due to transfer of heat energy. It means if you supply heat energy, the kinetic energy of the molecules increases. There will be random motion. So it kills the cohesive force, that intermolecular attraction. So the water molecules will try to escape from the surface, from the water surface as vapor or gas. That is called evaporation. The vapor creates a pressure. During evaporation, the pressure created by vapor is called vapor pressure. And it is occur above water surface. If it is closed container, then on the boundary it creates a pressure. And this condensation is the opposite of evaporation. Conversion of physical state of vapor or gas into liquid state when cooling or humid air occur. If we cool or if we stop supplying heat, then the vapor pressure decreases and the liquid, the vapor or gas converts into liquid state. That is called condensation, which is the opposite of evaporation process. Boiling temperature. Okay, boiling temperature means the temperature when vapor pressure rises to become equal to the atmospheric pressure. Here in this diagram, this is the solid, liquid and gas. From solid to liquid, melting is done. From liquid to gas, evaporation is. If you supply heat, that process is evaporation. From gas to liquid, that process is called condensation. From liquid to solid, that process is called freezing. The boiling point. Boiling point means here, okay, means it is the temperature at which the vapor pressure is just equal to the atmospheric pressure. When vapor pressure exceeds the atmospheric pressure, it becomes gas. Means the bubbles will form and there will be gas, or the vapor will evaporate. The water will evaporate. So till your vapor pressure is less than boiling pressure, okay, less than vapor pressure, the less than atmospheric vapor pressure is less than atmospheric pressure, then there will be vapors, but evaporation will not happen. Evaporation only happen after the boiling point. Okay. So this is the boiling point at which the vapor pressure is equal to atmospheric pressure. When in the reverse process, when you stop supplying heat and you try to cool the liquid, then the vapor pressure decreases. It becomes low, less than the boiling point. Then the condensation occurs, means the vapor or the gas again converts to the liquid form. That's called condensation. In the evaporation, low heat energy if you supply, there will low kinetic energy, but strong cohesion is must be strong during that time. In that, kinetic energy is not sufficient to counterbalance this strong cohesion. So vapor pressure is low, which is less than atmospheric pressure. So at that time, evaporation may occur very slow and without any bubble formation. I mean, vapor will form, but that without bubble formation. If you again increase the supply of heat, then what will happen? The temperature will reach at boiling point. Now, when it reaches the boiling point, kinetic energy becomes more. It will increase. So it will counterbalance the cohesion. So it will weaken the cohesion. Intermolecular attraction it will weaken. And then the vapor pressure increases, which becomes more than the atmospheric pressure. And there will be formation and rise of bubbles, which is called evaporation. The evaporation will be very high. In the reverse process, okay, if we cool the liquid, then temperature will come down below boiling point, then kinetic energy decreases, cohesion increases, then vapor pressure becomes low. It's lower than the atmospheric pressure, and the evaporation means during that condensation happen. During this, there will be condensation, means from gas to liquid. When this rate of evaporation and rate of condensation becomes equal, means the water molecules, the number of water molecules leaving from the liquid is equal to number of molecules, water molecules joining to the liquid. Means joining to the water, that I'm saying water, okay, whatever or liquid, any liquid. Okay, number of molecules leaving from the liquid is equal to number of molecules joining the liquid. Okay, that is called equilibrium condition. So here it shows that evaporation, but without bubble formation. Here vapor pressure is low or lower than the atmospheric pressure. Here vapor pressure is more than atmospheric pressure. Then there will be boiling, and due to there will be bubble formation, and there will be rise of bubbles. There will be high evaporation. Here evaporation, there is vapor formation, low, very low evaporation will occur. Means water molecules will escape, but to complete evaporate, to convert it into air or gas, okay, you have to, the temperature will have to be boiling temperature. Next, this rate of evaporation depends upon the vapor pressure, temperature, wind, quality of water, heat storage in water body, atmospheric pressure, size of water body. Vapor pressure, that already we discussed. If high vapor pressure due to weak intermolecular attraction, okay, then high vapor pressure causes high evaporation. If vapor pressure of the molecules is high, then quickly it will become equal to the atmospheric pressure, and it will exceed the atmospheric pressure. So the evaporation will suddenly increases. Temperature, if we increase the temperature, then evaporation will increase. Wind velocity, if we increase, then temperature, evaporation will increase. Quality of water, if pure water, then evaporation is more for pure water. For an example, if you muddy water, if you put milk and water both, okay, milk, evaporation in milk will take time, but in evaporation water will happen suddenly. That's the quality of water also a major factor in rate of evaporation. In muddy water, rate of evaporation will be less. Okay, heat storage in the water body. If there is already heat storage is there in the water body, then only in low heat supply, the evaporation will be high. Means low heat is required for the evaporation. Atmospheric pressure decrease with increase in atmospheric pressure. If we increase the atmospheric pressure, then the water molecules will take time to equate their vapor pressure with this atmospheric pressure. Means it will take time to become vapor pressure equal with the atmospheric pressure, because you are increasing atmospheric pressure. So the evaporation decreases. Next is size of water body. If the water body is large size, means more surface is open to the atmosphere and there will be more evaporation. Therefore, deeper reservoirs are preferred than wider reservoirs to reduce the evaporation. Next is estimation of evaporation. There are three different methods. One is using the experimental method, that is evaporimeter data. Evaporimeter is the instrument to measure the evaporation. It is experimental. Empirical evaporation equation. Empirical evaporation equations means the factors on which evaporation depends, that we have to find out, and the data, the observed data points you have to take. The data, from the data, these equations are developed, empirical equations are developed using any regression analysis or any analysis or any method, just to relate the evaporation with the variables on which it depends. Next is analytical method. In analytical method, all physical process we have to consider, like energy budget method. All energy we have to consider, the mass balance equation, all the process we have to remember, like precipitation and transpiration, runoff, ground to water storage, everything we have to consider. So all physical process is taken into consideration here. Then it is calculated using the equation. So first is evaporimeter. The water containing pans which are exposed to atmosphere and the loss of water by evaporation is measured in them at regular intervals. Yeah, these are just evaporation pans, okay, with certain dimension. For different evaporation pan, there are three different types. One is glass evaporation pan, IC standard pan, third one is Colorado sunken pan. So here in these pans, the loss of water depth is recorded at regular interval, and the average value usually considered as the evaporation for a particular day, especially. Here in the standard fan, also similar, is open to atmosphere. The pan is open to atmosphere, but there is system to measure the temperature here, and automatic that depth recording will be there. Okay. This Colorado sunken pan, it is also open to atmosphere. This is the pan, and the level it is actually below the ground level. It is fitted, and the water is level with the ground level. Okay, the depth is 460 mm. It's the area is 920, means this length and width, and 50 mm of depth it is kept, okay, above ground. This clearance will be there, but water depth will be up to this 460, up to 460 minus 50, that is 410 mm. Here the decrease of water level is recorded at regular interval. Using this evaporimeter data, these evaporimeters are not exact model of reservoirs or the lake or the natural water body. Therefore, to use this evaporimeter data to estimate the lake evaporation or that reservoir evaporation or any natural body evaporation, one coefficient is multiplied. That coefficient is called pan coefficient. It is also called correction factor. because pan evaporation, whatever the data we are getting in the experiment, that is not an actual model of real lake or water body. This correction factor used to make the real reservoirs equivalent to the evaporation pan. Okay, this pan coefficient is used. For different types of evaporimeter, pan coefficient is different. For class evaporation pan, it is 0.6 to 0.8. For IIC standard pan, it is 0.65 to 1.1. For Colorado Sunken pan, it is 0.75 to 0.86. For USGS floating pan, 0.7 to 0.82. Next is network of evaporimeter stations. In hot climates, in arid regions, at least one evaporimeter station is required for every 30,000 square kilometer. For humid temperature climates, at least one station for every 50,000 kilometers square. In cold region, at least one station for every 1 lakh square kilometer required. Next is the empirical equations method. That as I told, that evaporation depends upon many factors. Some variable is taken, like here EW and EA, that is saturated vapor pressure and actual vapor pressure. What is saturated vapor pressure? That means the pressure of the vapor which is in equilibrium with liquid. That for water, steam pressure of the steam is equal to the water pressure of water. That is called saturated vapor pressure. Actual vapor pressure of overlying air at a specified height in mm, any actual vapor pressure at a particular time, that is called actual vapor pressure. That difference, the actual vapor pressure of overlying air means air, or you can say atmospheric pressure. That pressure difference is taken into consideration. Wind speed correction function. This F is the wind speed correction function. K is the coefficient. EL is the lake evaporation. So here wind and the difference of this pressure is taken into consideration. Using observed data, the equation is developed. So this is called Dalton type equation. From this equation, two authors have developed. One is Mayer's formula, another is Robert's formula. This Mayer's formula uses this. Consider the one constant Km, that is constant coefficient for accounting for different other factors. There are other factors like deep water or the shallow water. For deep water, it is just 0.36, 0.5 for shallow water. EW minus EA, that is the difference in vapor pressure. And next is this is the wind factor, that is called 1 plus U9 by 16. U9 means mean monthly wind velocity in kilometer per hour at about 9 meters above ground. 9 meters above ground, the mean monthly wind velocity is taken as U9. So 1 plus U9 by 16. So different authors have considered that velocity factor indifferent. So this Rohr's formula here, velocity, the wind velocity is considered 0.44 plus 0.0733 U0. It is same difference of the pressure. Here another factor is multiplied here without the constant. Here I multiply 1.465 minus 0.000735 PA, that is atmospheric pressure. Mean barometric reading in mm of mercury. This is the mean wind speed. U0 is the mean wind speed at ground level. Ground level usually taken as 0.6 meter above the ground level. This also I give another expression between velocity, wind velocity, and the height. Wind velocity is c into h to the power 1 by 7, where h is the height above ground level, and c is a constant, which is the velocity at 1 meter above the ground. This c value is estimated from here. If we put one value here for h, then it will be velocity. The velocity at 1 meter above ground is the c value. So these two formula is empirical equations which can be used if we have the all this vapor pressure difference data and the wind speed data. Next is analytical method. Analytical method that I was discussing, that it is there is two type. One is water budget method and the energy balance method. In water budget method, it uses all the processes which may be simple if you have data, but it is least reliable. Just it is a simple arithmetic plus minus. So net flow coming is equal to net flow outgoing. Just in this mass conservation of mass. So that's why it is simple, but it's less reliable because it involves many processes. Means here P is the precipitation for a particular lake or particular reservoir. This equation is written. Okay, daily precipitation P. BIS is the daily surface inflow into the lake. This is the groundwater inflow, means the water joining to the reservoir from the groundwater. This is surface inflow into the lake, means runoff water joining to the lake, is equal to B not S, which is daily surface outflow from the lake. How much outflow is there? OG means it is to the ground. Volume of water, daily seepage outflow. Seepage outflow means joining to the ground. EL is the evaporation loss. Delta S is the change in storage. TL is the transpiration loss. Daily transpiration loss if it is there, some vegetation is there. So all the process is considered. That's why it's less reliable, so less accurate. Although it is simple. Next is energy balance method. In this method, law of conservation of energy is used. Unlike in the last method where law of conservation mass is used, a law of conservation of energy is used. Considering water body, the energy balance to the evaporating surface in a period of 1 day is given. For 1 day, it is taken this equation where Hn is the net heat energy received by the water surface. Net heat energy received by the water surface, which is equal to, it is divided into different heat energy. First, this HA, which is sensible heat transfer from water surface to air. HE is the heat transfer used for evaporation. Hg is the heat influx into the ground. Hs is the heat stored in the water body. Hi the heat transferred by flowing water to advection. So first we have to understand this Hn. What is Hn? See here, this is the water body and this is the solar radiation coming to the water body. But water body cannot absorb all radiation. Some will be reflect. Let the some fraction RHC, some fraction is reflected, and 1 minus RHC, that is the, if you take total 1 value, then fraction 1 minus R into HC will come into the reservoir, will be absorbed by the water. However, from that heat energy, some part will be go back to the atmosphere as back radiation. That is called long wave back radiation. That's called long wave back radiation. Okay, if there is due to this long back radiation, if there is any carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide gas, then they will absorb some this back radiation, which means all back radiation cannot return to the atmosphere. Some again return to this atmosphere, I mean come back to the surface. Okay, means any ground surface, and that's why the global warming happen. Okay, the pollutants absorbs this back radiation, that's why the global warming happen. But in this case, okay, in this we are discussing this, the water net incoming solar radiation into the surface. Here net heat energy received by the this water surface, means this 1 minus R into Hc minus this Hb, 1 minus Hc into 1 minus R minus Hb. This much of heat is coming to the water. After that there will be back radiation, so minus Hb. So net heat energy received by the water surface is Hn, which is equal to this HA. HA is the sensible heat transfer from water surface to air. Water surface to air. So this part is over. Now this part, there will be some loss of heat to the air. Okay, H is the evaporation. Okay, evaporation heat energy means rho L into L. Rho is the density, water density. L is the latent heat of evaporation. EL is the depth of evaporation. Next, Hg, the heat inflow into the ground. Ground also absorbs some heat from this water heat. Then HS. HS is the heat stored in the water body. Water itself store some heat, that is called HS. HI is the transport. There will be flowing of water. During that flowing, okay, some heat is transported. Some heat is transported in the flowing, which is called advection. Due to its velocity, there will be heat transfer, which is called advection. That is called advection. So this total innate energy is summation of all this heat energy. So using this equation and this equation, because there is EL term, okay, we use these two equation, we'll get EL, that is the evaporation, is equal to Hn minus Hg minus Hs minus Hi minus Ha divided by rho L. Means net heat energy minus all the losses, all these energy losses divided by rho L. These terms Hn, Hg, HL, Hs, Hi, these can be determined directly. However, this HA cannot be directly determined. Directly. That's why one bounce ratio is used to estimate this, which is equal to this 6.1 into 10 to the minus 4 into PA, which is atmospheric pressure, into TW minus TA divided by EW minus EA. Temperature difference between air and water surface divided by vapor pressure difference between water and air. Okay, so in this equation, just to adjust this HA, here beta is added here. So this is the final equation to estimate evaporation loss in a water body. Next is the method to reduce evaporation loss. By reducing open surface, that I told that deep reservoirs are preferred than wide reservoirs. By providing mechanical covers, temporary or permanent covers to the water body. By chemical method, cetyl alcohol, okay, that is called hexadecanol, C16H34O, that is the formula, or sterile alcohol, which is also called octadecanol. The formula is CH3O, CH2, 16 CH2OH. These three methods are used to reduce the evaporation loss. Next topic is evapotranspiration. Till now we are discussing about evaporation. Evaporation, that means from barren land or from water body. But in case of vegetation, if there is forest area, then there will be evaporation and transpiration that occur simultaneously. Evaporation occur means from the soil beneath the vegetation, means the soil which is under the vegetation, there will be evaporation. Okay, because the soil is not taken into consideration when we are considering barren land or the water body. That soil is under vegetation, so that evaporation will occur. At the same time, there will be transpiration. Transpiration means it is also evaporation. It is evaporation or the loss of water from tree surface of plant cells. From plant cells, like from leaves, from branches, from this whole plant system. Okay, from the plant cells there will be evaporation of water. Also, it includes the water required for the photosynthesis. So this transpiration is a physiological process in which water evaporates from free surface of plant cells. It includes all photosynthesis and evaporation from the plant cells. These are the factors which affect the transpiration. One is atmospheric vapor pressure, temperature, wind, light intensity, anatomy of plants. These are the factors that affect the evapotranspiration. Next is the equation of hydrologic budget. So using this hydrologic budget, okay, if you use this hydrologic budget, if you see the precipitation minus runoff minus infiltration minus actual evaporation is equal to change in storage. Okay, means it is the conservation of mass. What is actual evapotranspiration? Actual evapotranspiration means the evapotranspiration occurs at any particular time or at any particular situation. Okay, Even if water is less or water available is more to the ground, at any point of time or any specified time we measure the evapotranspiration, that is called actual evapotranspiration. Potential evapotranspiration is the evapotranspiration when sufficient water is available to the plants. Means the maximum evapotranspiration that can take place by the vegetation if sufficient moisture is available to the plants. If in soil sufficient moisture is available, sufficiently available, then the maximum evapotranspiration that can happen by the vegetation, that is called potential evapotranspiration. So this two is about vegetation. Field capacity, it is about soil. The maximum moisture that soil can hold against force of gravity. If there will be precipitation or we supply the water to the soil, then what will happen? Initially it will absorb some water. Okay, so first it will absorb, there will be force of gravity, so water will try to move into the ground surface, into the ground. Then maximum soil it can hold. Some part it can hold, some part it cannot hold. And if you supply excess of FC, then what will happen? The moisture, the water will simply drain away. So the soil cannot hold it. In some part of water, if it can hold, okay, the soil inside the ground, inside the soil, okay, the water will simply join to the water table. Okay, let's come to the permanent wilting point, PWP. Permanent wilting point means it is the max moisture content of the soil below which the moisture is no longer available to the plants. It means the moisture, whatever moisture you are supplying to the soil, all moisture cannot be withdrawn, cannot be drawn by the plants. Okay, the capillarity is not so strong that it can withdraw all water from the soil. If the soil moisture is very low, which is if below the PWP, permanent wilting point, that water cannot be available to the plants, means using the capillarity of the plants, that cannot be drawn, that cannot be used by the plants because soil moisture is very low. That moisture content is called permanent wilting point. That water, okay, the below PWP is called hygroscopic water, which cannot drawn and used by the plants. It is called unavailable water, means that water is not available. Soil moisture is so less there that it is not be available to the plants. Next is gravity water. Gravity water, that I told that part of absorbed water, let soil absorb some water, but it cannot hold it. All water cannot hold it against gravity. So the part it can hold due to its force, and some part it cannot hold. That water will simply drain away into the groundwater. That is called capillary water, or else that is also called gravity water. That gravity water is the total absorbed water by the soil minus FC, means field capacity. Total water you are supplying, total absorbed minus FC. Up to field capacity it can absorb, after that it simply drain away and it will join to the groundwater table. Available water is the for the plant. Available water means it is for plant. That is the difference between this field capacity moisture content minus PWP moisture content. If you see this plot, this is the plot between different types of soil and percentage of soil water. Okay, for a particular soil type, if you consider, okay, here this is the for silty loam, this is the wilting point at nearly 10% wilting point. Okay, below this wilting point, if soil moisture is below this 10%, okay, that moisture will not be available to the plants. That water is called hygroscopic water, and this moisture content, that 10%, is called permanent wilting point of silty loam soil, means of that vegetation, of that crop. Okay, so it will not be available if it is less than this PWP or 10%. It will not be available to the plants. If it is more than 10%, then it will be available. So here, if increase the soil moisture, let from 10 to 30, up to 30, it is the field capacity of this silt loam. This is the field capacity. I mean, this much of water, 30% it can hold. After that, again, if you supply, then this much water, it will simply drain away and it will join to the groundwater. So this water is called gravity water. And this water from 10% to 30% is called available water. That is field capacity moisture content minus permanent wilting point moisture content. So this water is called available water. So soil means the plants can use this water from the soil. Now let's talk about this AET and PET. AET, it is for vegetation. AET is the actual evapotranspiration. PET is the potential evapotranspiration. Here at field capacity, okay, sufficient moisture is available in the soil, means it will be available to the plants, sufficient moisture. So the here whatever the evapotranspiration will occur, that will be PET. Means here the actual evapotranspiration, if you measure at any at this point, then the AET will be equal to PET because it will be potential evapotranspiration. Between FC and this PWP, water is not sufficient for the plant. Since water is not sufficient, okay, the AET will be less than PET. Below PWP, the AET will be 0. Means available evapotranspiration, there will be no evapotranspiration because it will not be available to the plants. So here AET will be 0. Here AET will be 0. Because this water is not available to the plants. This water is available to the plants. So AET is less than PET. Here this water is sufficient, is maximum. So maximum evapotranspiration that can take place. So that is the PET. Now come to the different soil. If you see the soil, sandy loam, silty loam, clay. Here the large pore size, sand has large pore size, clay has least pore size. If large size is more, then porosity will be less. If large size pore size is less, then porosity is more. Okay, so in this sandy soil, okay, means permeability is more, so porosity is less. If permeability decreases, then porosity increases. Okay, so that's why here in sandy soil, what will happen? The wilting point will be less, field capacity will be very less. So the available water is very less for the plants. That's why sandy soil is not good for the crop. Sandy loamy soil also not so good. Loam soil and silty loam soil is very good for the plant because available water is more. Available water is more for the plants. For the clay soil, it can hold more water, means field capacity is more, but that PWT is also more. Means the soil cannot withdraw sufficient water here. Only this much available for the plants. Yes, so clay soil is not good for the crop. For the crop, this silty loam soil is very good. Okay, this much. Thank you so much.